rhetoric, a particular image, and that is mainly their function in a lot of ways. So you have to just know and accept that if you get that huge interview, it's not, it has to be just contextualized as such. So, for example, I was able to interview Jack Valenti as a grad student, and I sat there and I said, well, you know, can we talk about Hollywood's antitrust problems? And he said, antitrust problems? What are you talking about? Hollywood's never had any antitrust problems. And I was like, yes, they have. And I'm writing a book about it. What are you talking about? But I didn't say that. I just said, okay. You know, I mean, what are you supposed to do? I'm in Jack Valenti's office, and I'm a grad student. And so that, I think, so I was able to use that as just, you know, the industry's top lobbyist is so invested in this particular point of view that when confronted, this is just what you get. And so you have to know how to use these kind of sources for what they are. I think always going down a level or two will get you the juiciest kind of day-to-day work, how things work. That becomes the most valuable. Official sources aren't always, you know, trades, for example, trade discourse has to be thought of as a particular discourse, not swallowed whole, right, and just accepted as fact. So I think when so many of us get our research from the trades, but that has to be supplemented with so many other types of information, right? So I think just really being conscious of who you're talking to and what that person is invested in when you're thinking about doing interviews and ethnographic research is the most important thing.
Yes, I'm very guilty of finding juicy numbers that say what I want in some place and believing them, whereas they do need to be read as texts in the same way as any program or film or genre does. There's no doubt about that. I absolutely agree. I think the other thing is that, for example, when you're talking about how to mobilize something like global screen analysis, and when you're trying to deal with something like the significance or otherwise of the United States, one of the problems is that most wealthy countries and many not very wealthy countries are following the tendency of the US to create what we call cable channels, but say the Spanish call thematic channels, if you like, genre channels, right? Where there's just one genre that's on the station rather than lots, rather than the omnibus survey approach of what we call the network still here, right? Almost no countries in the world, even those that gather fairly comprehensive statistics on where television programs come from, do this for anything other than the old broadcast stations. So they tend not to be able to promulgate to you the real impact of having lots of what we would call cable stations, but genre or thematic stations starting up, needing lots of content, not needing big audiences, and often going to very old school suppliers like the United States. So the numbers we look at are frequently distorted because something that maybe isn't popular enough that comes from the US to be in prime time on the equivalent of a network is actually probably, and there's lots of bitty evidence to get at this, quite significant in the visual landscape of a country, but either through being part of the informal economy of so-called piracy or by being on genre or thematic-based television networks. The other thing about the ethnographic stuff is, and this is the dirty little secret that tenured people over 50 tell one another, is you need to be young and cute if you are going to get information from Hollywood brokers.
I managed to do it.
Exactly. It's fine for you. But for a number of the rest of us, it's not. And that's very interesting for people who are anthropologists who want to work on Hollywood, and people within film studies, media studies, communication studies areas who frequently basically use their grad students as delegates to engage in this labor